All right. Hey, good to see everybody. Excited to get back going here. I know we've been going for a few days. And back here, Players' Day off yesterday, back here, ramped up the tempo a little bit, and then tomorrow we really get going, put the pads on, and get the next couple days and really get to some real football. So excited about the way the first week's gone here. Players are doing a good job. Coaches and players are putting in a lot of good time and making some progress. Got a long way to go, but excited with where we're at right now and ready to take the next step tomorrow once we get the pads on. So good to see everybody. And what do you guys got?
Monti, what was it like to watch kind of that there at the end, the excitement from fans, just as you kind of just saw there at the end?
Yeah, definitely can bring some energy into the building, and it always the players like that, and it's good to get that feel back here and be really good once we get the preseason going and get the building full. But it's always good. Training camp's always a unique environment, so it's good. It breaks up the day a little bit and gives the guys something to look forward to. And so that's great. It's great to have Cardinals fans seeing all that red up there in the stands. So it's great environment, and looking forward to giving them something to cheer about.
What are the differences between this year's camp and last year's camp when you take into consideration you have quarterback stability, you have coaches in the second year being able to make some changes and kind of get into more comfortable with it?
Yeah, I think, Josh, with that, I think the continuity always helps, right? So last year, everything was new for all of us. How we were going to structure camp, how we were going to practice, just stylistically, just with our up-tempo days, low-tempo days. And so this year, not only with the coaching staff, the football operations staff, and then with continuity of players, we had some carryover from last year's team. And so everybody has an idea of what's coming. And so there's not as much new things that are new. Now, every year we look at things and we adjust how we're doing things. So everything's not exactly the same, but nothing's a surprise. And so that helps all of us, and it has made things go just smoother than they were last year when everything was just all brand new for everybody.
Are there any positions you look at right now and just generally say, I wouldn't mind upgrading there? I'm not asking necessarily what the positions are, but is that ongoing in your head, or is it just like if the right guy came out, doesn't matter what position we'd want him?
Yeah, Darren, I'd say the whole concept of roster building is definitely ongoing the whole time. So we came off of two of the bigger ones in the calendar year in free agency and the draft. And that's really the two times where you had the most amount of players to your roster. But as you guys saw last year, there's times that even throughout camp, and then certainly once we get through preseason and cut down days, there's other times that there's opportunities to add people to your roster. So we're always looking to add competition. We're always looking to add talent. Our pro scouts are prepping for preseason right now. So we're monitoring the league, and we always do that. And if a situation arises, we certainly won't hesitate to make an addition to the roster.
Along those lines, there's been a lot of discussion of what you did or did not do in terms of edge rushers. What was your philosophy going into the offseason on what you wanted from that position?
Yeah, I think with every position, we're constantly trying to look better or trying to get better, and so that looks different at each position depending on what the constitution of that room looks like at the time. So, there's always opportunities, and so it's not. I wouldn't say it's a situation where we ignore a position. It's more so is the opportunity there to add to it, and so in free agency that is a lot of times dictated by the market, and then the draft it's dictated by who gets picked before you, and so I think anytime that we can add to a group, whether it's edge rusher or any other position, we're all in favor of improving any position that it is. I think when it comes to that, just the opportunity that's presented itself, I think led us to make other choices in both free agency and the draft.
Does what you have play into that as well in terms of, okay, we want to see what these guys are able to do and maybe make some progression before we...
Certainly, yeah. That certainly goes into every factor of, hey, if we add a player, what does this mean for the other guys in the room? And hey, we think we're light here, we got to add here. So those discussions are always happening, always ongoing, and one decision affects two other decisions. So certainly things that we go through, whether it's free agency prep, draft prep, pro preseason scouting, and so those are things that we talk about every day for the roster.
4 days in, is there any position groups that are really standing out to you right now?
I'd say it's still pretty early for that, Tyler. I think what we have succeeded in is I think we've added competition to all levels of the roster, and so across the board. And I think there's going to be a lot of good position battles as we go through here. I think there's going to be opportunities for a lot of guys to step up and take spots, but I think there's also going to have to be a situation where guys earn spots this year. And so we're looking forward to see how that plays out. We have the practices here in State Farm. We'll have the couple practices in Indy here in a couple weeks, and then the 3 preseason games. And I think all those opportunities for players to go ahead and take that next step and earn a spot. I think those are going to be key for a lot of different rooms this year.
Even though you are always looking, you have an open roster spot which hasn't been filled on almost a week. Is that part of that because of the health of the team? Also that you are kind of pleased with what you have right now on the field?
Yeah, Howard, I think that's fair, and I think one thing that we've talked about. I mean, we are at 90. We could go to 91 with our international exemption, but I think whenever the health of the team certainly has played into that. So, as things start piling up, I'm knock on wood, hopefully they don't, but inevitably it is football and the pads are going on. So players are going to get nicked up, and then it becomes a roster management, a rep management of where we're going to need players. So, right now the numbers wise and the reps wise, we're happy with the work guys are getting. We don't feel guys are getting overworked or not getting enough work. And so I think keeping that roster spot until we absolutely need it and not just filling it to fill it, I think that's something that we subscribe to. And then we'll see here as we go. I think guys, unfortunately, are going to get nicked up or need a little time. And so then at that point, we'll have a spot available to shore up the roster for rep reasons.
When you were going through the scouting process with Marvin, what 2 to 3 things of his skill set specifically did you like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds really simple, but, for a wide receiver, it really gets down to basics. He's able to get open and he catches the ball. And so, Marvin's been productive at a high level the last 2 years. And, for a guy his size, he's a good route runner. He's got good ball skills. He can run. He's good after the catch, and so he checks a lot of boxes. And then, the Marvin, the person, checks a lot as well. So, excited. He's off to a good start here. Excited to keep him in that wide receiver room. I think we got a good group there. Exciting group of young guys, older guys. So excited to add him into that group.
You mentioned that each player that you guys have brought in has their own unique, impressive process. From your standpoint, what goes into kind of identifying?
Yeah, I think the more, I think a big part of that is going to start for us here next week for the 2025 class when our scouts who are in town right now, they'll leave here and they'll start going out to college campuses and start gathering information. And so, Bo, I think that's a long process. It's, over a year, like the process has already started, and it's over a year that we put into gathering information and also observing players out on the practice field at their colleges. So, it's a combination of information that we gather when our scouts go out to schools. It's a combination of that plus our scouts' own observations of what they see on the practice field, and then that's going to continue through the All-Star game process when we actually get to sit down and talk with these players. Through the combine, those interviews continue, and really we try to continue to paint the picture of what the player is. And when those things match, hey, we were told this is what I saw, it matches what we were told, and then when we get to interview the player and all these things match, then we feel like we have a good idea of who the player is as a person. So that's a long process, it's a tough process, but it's one that our scouts do a phenomenal job of, and they're going to really get rolling on that next week.
You told us in the past that you're a big note taker. In year 2, are you even more of a note taker? And then where do you keep all these notes?
Yeah, I need a little help up here, so I got to write things down, Cam. So, no, I mean, I think just always there's things that come up and things that that we want to follow up on, or somebody has an idea, and so something comes up in practice and I want to know about it, I want to educate myself about it, and so I write myself notes down, and so there's a lot going on this time of year, so I need all the help I can get. So I like to write things down so I don't go in one ear and out the other. So.
With potential additions over the next month, you're talking about waiver claims. Is that more likely the avenue you would go, or could you dip back into free agency?
I think we're open to every avenue, so we are well aware of all the players that are out there in free agency right now and how they would help or not help us. Waiver claims that'll come up here at the end of August into early September. So, I think we're open to anything in terms of roster building that could go on and help us. Wolf.
Yeah, Monty, with the pads going on tomorrow, do you have a plan as to how you're going to watch practice? What is it?
Multiple times. Yeah, and so what we do as a staff is as soon as practice ends, we'll go back and we'll watch it as a staff together, and then I always like to go back and watch it a second time just by myself. And so,
If you're out on the field, do you like to follow a position group, and if so, whom?
yeah, I like to bounce around. I get a better feel of moving around the field and seeing up close, and that's things that sometimes film can't capture. Or, I like to hear the coaching points, like hear what the coaches are teaching, and things that I'm not versed on. I'm not a coach. I don't know the scheme. I'm trying to learn myself, so I need to know what the coaches are teaching the players, so I know what they're asked to do, and then can evaluate, and our staff can evaluate properly. So, on the field is a great time to get that live, and then marry that up with the film once we go back after practice.
What did you think, and what did you like about Kyler taking the group to LA to work with them kind of on their own?
I thought it was awesome. I wish I would have got invited. So, no, I thought that was great. I thought it was tremendous. I thought it was a great bonding experience. Sounds like they got good work in, had a good facility to do it in. We have some new players, some young players. It was good for them to get together as a group and outside the building and have a little ramp up, lead up into camp. And I thought it was amazing.
Philosophically, when it comes to potential contract extensions with anybody, do you prefer to have that be an off-season thing? Is it something that you could see happening in season at any point with somebody?
Yeah, Darren, I think those are case by case. I think we got players that are at varying different contract levels. Some are signed long term, some are up after this year. I think different players fall under different categories, and so I think really that's a case by case basis, and those we'll deal with those as they come up.
JG earlier mentioned kind of the ongoing dialogue with Kyler regarding how much he does or doesn't need to do in preseason games. What are those kind of discussions like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's always a balance, right? Like I think it really depends on a few things. I think it depends on the health of the team in general. I think it depends on the quality of the work that we're getting in practice and how the timing is looking. So I think a lot goes into that. And so, we'll have the practices with Indy coming up, and we'll get good work in there where it's, high tempo, but, a controlled environment. I think those are always good for that. It's a balance. And I don't know that there's a perfect answer. I think really all it's going to come down to for us is making the best decision that we can at that time based on what has led up to that game or that practice.
Aside from the obvious addition of spots, how does an expanded practice squad impact your approach to roster building?
Yeah, I think that's it's been helpful. It's a whole concept of, hey, the practice squad used to, at least when I first started, used to be constituted of only young players, right? And it was always developmental players, and hopefully they can, a guy that's just a year away, he needs some strength development, technique development. Now I think there's a balance with veteran players, and so guys that they're not really developmental players anymore. Their careers and their ability is kind of declared what they are, but it's almost we used to have a thing called the emergency list where veterans that were free agents. Well, now the emergency list is really, you have some of those players on your team and the guys that have been around, guys that can be called up and be elevated to the roster. And so I think there's a balance. That's a balance of young players, young developmental players. It's a balancing that with veteran players that can come in, and whether it's help in the kicking game or help on offense and defense. I think it's opened up a lot of avenues, and increasing that number to 16. It's one I'm in favor of, and I think it opens up possibilities for us to work with a lot more players. So it's been great.
With health and safety obviously at the forefront, players more adept at taking care of one another, practicing smart. As the pads come on, how do you guys measure physicality you know, that maybe you did 10 years ago?
Yeah, Omar, that's a fine line, right? Like we, you know, the only way to get better at football is to practice football, you know, and so we have to go out there, and it's a physical game, and we have to be physical, and we have to get players ready for the rigors of a season, and that when we step on the field in Buffalo, it can't be the first time that, you know, we've collided with somebody, but at the same time, we have to protect our team. And so, you know, I think that is a day-by-day conversation as we go. And so we have a plan right now of how we're going to structure the rest of the month and into August, or through August, I should say. You know, whether this day is pads, this day is less pads, and, you know, how we're going to do that. But, you know, as those days go by, we can throw that plan out the window. It's going to be according to what our team looks like. And so it's a fine line. Football it's dangerous. It's physical. What these guys do, it's unbelievable what they put their body through. And, you know, the health and safety of the players is never going to take a backseat to anything in our program. So we're always going to be doing what we can do to keep our players safe while at the same time getting them ready for the season.
A lot of players cited B.J. Ojulari. A lot of players said B.J. Ojulari has taken a big step since last year. Have you seen that? And are there any other young players that you have noticed so far have really progressed?
Yeah, I think, you know, Paul, you know, yes, I would say BJ has taken a jump. He had a good spring. He's ready to go. We talk a lot about it a lot. There's no bigger jump than we'll see is from their player's rookie season to their second season, right? And because, you know, that rookie season, it's a lot. It's a lot on these players, and they've come off an entire college football season, and then they've jumped right into all-star game season, and then they jump into combine training, and then they get ready for a pro day, and then they have 2 weeks off, and then they get drafted, and then they come to us, and we put them through 6 weeks, and then they get 2 weeks off in the summer, and then they got an 18 games, you know, or a 17 game schedule in the NFL with 3 preseason games. Like, there's no break. Like, they've gone almost a year and a half without a break. And so for those rookie players to have a break for the first time in a long time this past offseason, where they've been able to rest their bodies, plus they've have all the knowledge that they gained over their rookie season, and they've had a year to develop in our off-season program, their bodies, physically, mentally. That's why we say that big jump. And so I would say we're looking for a jump from all of our last year's rookies, so our second-year players. And I think we've seen that in the spring. But, you know, really it's going to come down to what shows up here in the next few weeks to see how big that jump was. But the work that they put in certainly showed up in the spring, and I'd put BJ in that category.